It started with one woman. No music, no crowd, just dancing. Frau Trafia stepped into the street in the summer of 1518, lifted her arms, and began to sway. And she didn't stop. Not for lunch, not for sleep, not even when her feet started to bleed. Within days, dozens more joined her. Then hundreds. Dancing in the streets of Strasbourg, flailing, sweating, convulsing to music that wasn't there. And here's the kicker. Some of them danced themselves to death. Like, literally. Heart attack, stroke, exhaustion. Was it mass hysteria? A religious curse? Poisoned bread? Or something weirder? This is History on the Margins, the show that tangos with the past's strangest stories. I'm your host, John Williamson, and today we're lacing up our cursed dancing shoes and revisiting one of the most bonkers medical mysteries of the Middle Ages. This is the story of the dancing plague of 1518. And yes, you're allowed to laugh, but also maybe be a little afraid. July 1519, it's a normal day in Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, now part of France. The air is thick with summer heat and plague-era pessimism. And down one cobblestone street is a woman named Frau Trafia who does something very unexpected. She starts to dance. Not at a festival, not at a wedding, just out in the open. No music, no reason, just her rhythmically swaying, stepping, flailing. Like she's trying to exorcise a demon and win a medieval dance-off at the same time. At first, people assume she's drunk, or possessed, or maybe just having a very public nervous breakdown, which, to be fair, in 1518 was probably the coping mechanism of choice. But she keeps going. For hours. Then through the night. Then the next day. And then the day after that. Reports say she danced 4 to 6 days straight. Barely resting, barely eating, her feet a bloody mess. And yet somehow, still moving. Then things got even weirder. Others started to join her. First a handful of curious onlookers, then dozens, then hundreds. Men, women, even children. They danced until they collapsed. Some died from exhaustion, others from heart failure or stroke. Estimates suggest as many as 400 people were afflicted by what the locals soon called the dancing mania. And here's the kicker. This wasn't the first time this happened. Similar outbreaks had been recorded as far back as the 7th century, in Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Sometimes it was called St. Vitus dance, named after a saint who, ironically, was believed to protect against dancing. But this was the biggest, the deadliest, and the most terrifying. Imagine looking out your window and seeing a street full of people dancing, sweaty, bleeding, eyes wild, unable to stop. No music, no laughter, just a crowd of people trapped in a beat only they can hear, as they slowly die from it. The mayor was baffled, the clergy were baffled, and the townspeople? They were probably just hoping the plague would come back and calm things down a bit. But what caused this bizarre outbreak? Was it witchcraft? Poison? A 16th century flash mob gone horribly wrong? No one told us when to stop! In the next section, we break down the theories. And yes, one of them involves moldy bread. So, hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably in the streets until they collapsed and died. Seems like the kind of thing science should be able to answer, right? Well, yes, and also not really. Because here's the thing. Despite how bizarre and well documented this event was, no one really agrees on what actually happened. But that hasn't stopped historians, doctors, conspiracy theorists, and bored Reddit users from coming up with a buffet of explanations. So let's sample the weirdest ones. Theory number 1, ergot poisoning. One of the most popular theories is ergot poisoning. That's right. people may have been tripping on moldy bread. Ergot is a fungus that grows on damp rye, and it can cause hallucinations, muscle spasms, and convulsions. Basically, medieval LSD, but without the Burning Man vibes. Now, ergot is legit scary. It's been linked to a lot of things, including the Salem witch trials, but here's the issue. Ergot poisoning makes it hard to walk, not breakdance until you flatline. Plus, most people afflicted with ergot hallucinate quietly in a corner, not organize an impromptu death rave in the street. So while it's tempting to blame bad toast, this theory doesn't quite stick the landing. So let's look at theory number 2, religious ecstasy, aka divine booty shaking. Another theory, religious mania. Some believe the dancers were caught in a trance, either cursed or blessed by Saint Vitus, the patron saint of epilepsy, dancers, and weirdly, oversleeping. Apparently, the idea was that if you offended the saint, he would curse you with nonstop dancing. I don't know about you, but if that's the punishment, I have a few playlist requests. The church even recommended penance pilgrimages and exorcisms. Some dancers were marched to shrines in the hopes they'd, sweat the sin out, like a very confusing jazzercise retreat. So let's move on to theory number 3, mass hysteria, one of my favorites. Now here's the theory that modern scholars lean toward. Mass psychogenic illness, or as it's better known, mass hysteria. The idea? Everyone was under so much stress from famine, plague, religious fear, and just general 1500s level trauma that their brains decided to yeet themselves into an interpretive dance. Basically, one person cracked and the panic spread like TikTok choreography, but with significantly more blood loss. And hey, it tracks. These people were dealing with a lot. Imagine if your city had no food, no medicine, and your mayor thought demons were responsible for left-handedness. Times was hard. You'd probably lose it too. But still, hundreds of people dancing themselves to death, that's not just stress. That's stress with choreography. Are there other theories? You bet. Some say it was a cult. Others blame secret pagan rituals. One theory claimed it was a form of protest, which honestly would make it history's most hardcore flash mob. And then there's always the classic scapegoat. Witchcraft, because when in doubt, blame the women. No matter how you slice it, the dancing plague remains one of those historical events that feels like it should have a clear explanation, but just refuses to sit still long enough to be understood. Kind of like the dancers. And if you think the authorities handled it with calm, measured reasoning, oh boy. Next, we look at how Strasbourg's city leaders tried to solve the problem by making it worse. Because, of course, they did. So, what do you do when hundreds of people are dancing themselves into a bloody stupor in the middle of your city? If you're a modern leader, maybe you call in doctors, issue a lockdown, put out a strongly worded press release. But if you're the Strasbourg City Council in 1518, you go with the most logical solution available. You hire a band. No, seriously. According to historical records, the city's physicians ruled out supernatural causes and instead diagnosed the afflicted with a condition called hot blood, which, to be fair, sounds less like a medical term and more like a rejected title of a Killer's album. Their prescription? Let them dance it out. So the city built a stage. They brought in musicians, even hired professional dancers to help, quote, guide the movement. Because when people are dying from too much dancing, the obvious solution is choreographed encouragement. Imagine you're one of the afflicted. You've been stuck in an uncontrollable trance for 3 days. Your feet look like raw meat. And now a band shows up to play Greensleeves at full blast like this is Coachella, Bubonic Edition. Needless to say, it didn't help. In fact, it probably made things worse. More music meant more rhythm. More rhythm meant more movement. And more movement meant more death. Eventually, as people started collapsing in great numbers, the city finally went, okay, maybe this isn't a fun little town event. Maybe we should try something else. So they pivoted. Hard. The new plan? gather up the afflicted, and march them out of the city, up to a mountaintop shrine dedicated to St. Vitus. There they made offerings, gave them holy water, and even put red shoes on their feet that had been sprinkled with, you guessed it, sacred oil. So basically a spa day for cursed feet. And somehow, after that, the mania started to fade. People stopped dancing. Streets emptied. Life went back to normal, or at least as normal as it could be when your town just lived through a live-action Footloose exorcism. So was it divine punishment? Bad bread? A medieval case of FOMO with lethal consequences? Next, we dig into the modern science and try to answer once and for all, the hell actually happened? By now, we've danced through curses, bad bread, and a full medieval music festival. So what actually happened? Well, the leading theory still points to mass psychogenic illness. But what makes the Strasbourg outbreak so fascinating isn't just that it happened, it's the scale, the duration, the fact that it wasn't isolated to one person or one day. This was choreographed chaos, and historians still debate what exactly pushed it to such extremes. One clue may lie in what's called conversion disorder, where emotional or psychological stress is converted into physical symptoms, not made up, not faked, but real and voluntary responses. When one person snaps in a hyper-religious, famine-stricken city, others don't just empathize, they embody the fear. And in a culture steeped in superstition, that fear had legs, dancing legs. The real twist? The cure likely worked. Not because it was holy, but because it felt holy. Marching to the shrine, wearing the red shoes, pouring the holy oil, it gave people a story, an end, a release. And that's the strange truth behind so many historical cures. They didn't need to be scientifically valid, just believable enough to make your brain stop panicking. The dancing plague of 1518 eventually faded. No mass arrests, no public trials, no dramatic cure. It just ended. The city of Strasbourg mostly moved on, probably with a little less public dancing and a lot more cautious bread storage. But here's the thing. Just because this dancing plague ended doesn't mean the idea went away. We've seen echoes of it throughout history. Waves of fainting in convents, mysterious illnesses in schools, entire factories shutting down over contagious laughter. No joke, that actually happened in Tanzania in the 1960s. Today, we call it behavioral contagion. One person coughs in a crowd, suddenly 5 people cough. One person panics on a plane, suddenly everyone's checking the exits. We love to believe we're rational creatures, that we'd never join a crowd of people dancing themselves to death. But we do it all the time, just with different choreography. Social media meltdowns, conspiracy spirals, memes that start as jokes and end up with someone buying 300 pounds of rice just in case. The truth is, we are deeply connected, emotionally flammable creatures. And when we're scared, confused, or looking for meaning, we follow the rhythm we think will save us. The dancing plague isn't just a historical oddity. It's a mirror, a reminder that under pressure, even the most absurd behavior can become contagious. And sometimes, fatal. Thanks for joining me today on History on the Margins. If you liked today's episode, leave a review, tell a friend, or hire a lute player and reenact it dramatically in your town square. I'm not here to stop you. Next time, we'll explore another strange true tale. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and for the love of St. Vitus, don't join every dance.